Hi everyone, welcome to the October Academy session. Today we have Harriet Hunt, Women's Grandmaster. She was the World Girls Under-20 champion, and she's the 5-time British Ladies Champion and the current British Ladies Champion. So we're very happy to have her joining the Academy session today. And yeah, over to you, Harriet.
Right, hi everyone. If you have enough bandwidth to turn your videos on, that would be lovely, but no worries if not. So today then we're going to look at evaluating positions, and we haven't got very long, or at least I haven't got very long. I know you've got a session in 2 halves, so let's jump straight in, and I'm going to share my screen so we can look at our first position, and we'll put into practice some of the things that you have been doing there we go. Hopefully you can see that now. Yep.
Yeah.
Thumbs up if you can see that. If we can get a few thumbs up, that would be good. Either real thumbs up or lovely, thank you Bodana. Either a few real thumbs up or the ones using the Zoom function. Brilliant. So we'll start off. So hopefully you've had a look at the worksheet material about evaluating positions. So let's start off with this one, which is relatively nice and simple. So the key thing is you need to know who it is to move. So it's white to move in this position. So have a think about this position. And probably the best thing is if you write some comments in the chat to me, probably if you direct them to everyone.
Oh, okay, not private.
Not private. No, it's nice because then we can have a little bit of a discussion. Okay, you can do either. I don't really mind.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so it's white to move. So who do you think is better? And much more importantly, why do you think they're better? And can you think of some candidate moves if you're playing white in this position? I can't see. Let me see. Oh, there's the chat. Right.
Sorry, I did write to send it to you privately, but send it to everyone, please. That'd be great.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Right.
So
okay, I don't mind.
So Rakaya's written, I prefer white's pawn structure, knight and queen, although I like that black is controlling the e file. So
okay.
Jane, I think the position is about equal.
Aidan says knight f6 check doesn't work.
True? Yeah, bishop can take it.
Yeah, that would be a very easy evaluation if it did work. What, knight f6 check is a brilliant blunder, Rukaya. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Aidan says the position's about equal. Why do you think the position's about equal, Aidan? Can you say anything in support of that? Rowan says, I think it's equal because white has a good structure, but black has good defense. Though black does have a black backward d pawn.
Gregory, I think white's a bit better because of the backward d pawn and the d8 bishop is stuck defending the fork on f6. I think I would play knight f4 if I was white, says Gregory.
Okay. What are you trying to do with knight f4, Gregory? What's your plan or what's your idea?
Maybe go for an attack on the black king and look to double rooks on the e file, he says.
Is that the idea behind white f4? White is better. Katie says, I think that white is better because of their better pawn structure, more active pieces, and although black had control of the open e file, I think that the knight dominating the bishop is a key factor and means that white is just so much better with the pieces further up the board too. Okay, there are some great comments that everybody has made here. Some comments coming in about black's pawn structure. Black has got 3 pawn islands compared to white's 2. That's a good point. Somebody wants to play, who's that? Rukai wants to play knight c3 to attack the pawn. I'm a greedy player. Not at all. White has an active knight on an outpost in the center. Okay, let's try and summarize that. So what do we think? So the key things going on that I think a lot of people pointed out. So first of all, we can see that white has this wonderful knight here that black can't challenge. Okay, black's run out of the relevant minor pieces to challenge that. And that we can even, we've always got the option of supporting that further with the c4 move if we want to. Okay, the black rooks aren't connected. The bishop is passive. Yeah, so white's knight is a much better piece than this dark squared bishop. Okay, the white knight is dominating the black bishop, taking away some of its squares. And because that bishop is a bit stuck on the back rank, then, as you say, yeah, good knight versus bad bishop scenario, a bit of a classic one, this, and therefore those rooks aren't connected. Okay, and yep, so white has got a better pawn structure, and so somebody said white's got 3 pawn islands, black's just got 2, and I really like your last comment, Ria. Black's pushed the f pawn for no good reason. Okay, well, we don't know what the reason was because we didn't see the earlier part of the game. Okay, so it might have been a good reason at the time, but you're quite right that it weakens black's king position. So on the whole, white has got better king safety. So, but yeah, so some of you commented that one good thing about black's position is, at the moment at least, black does have control of the open e file. Okay, so we've had a variety of evaluations of this position. Some of you thought actually black's got enough and it's still about equal. Some of you think white's a bit better. Some of you think white's quite a lot better. In some ways, it doesn't matter too much because the most important thing is to keep playing good moves. Never mind what the objective evaluation is. Actually, I would say, although I think, for what it's worth, I think I would say that white is probably quite a lot better here. White's got some weak dark squares on the queen side, but I don't know if that's a big problem. That's an interesting comment, Jane. So yeah, so because of this pawn structure, then in theory, at least, these dark squares are weak. I'm not sure if, I don't think that is a big problem actually, because I don't see any way for black to attack them. If we had our king sitting on this square, now that would be another matter, but our king is safely tucked away on the king's side. Okay, so we had a couple of candidate moves to do with moving the knight, a couple of knight suggestions. I'd like a few more candidate moves, please. So can you type, what would you actually play as white? This is one of the really difficult things in chess, is you have to go from deciding who's doing well in a position to actually finding a good move to continue the game. Okay.
I think in some of these positions, it's really useful to be patient as well, not to rush. Just take your time.
Yeah. And although we can't play knight f6 check immediately, because it will just lose a piece, then it's worth noting that that kind of ties black's bishop down. So, for example, that is stopping black seeking to get their bishop more active on the queen side, for example. The aim of chess is to find the next move, absolutely. And you can have a really good position. You can even have a winning position and still stuff it up by not finding the best move. Even top players do that. Yeah, and you also have to be pragmatic about it because you're playing with a clock as well. And, you know, you need to keep making good enough moves to keep ahead of the clock as well. So It's no use just admiring your position and sitting there all day. Right, yeah, so we've already rejected knight f6, bishop f takes f6. So remember that when you're looking for candidate moves, you should be thinking of a few different moves in most positions that you're looking at, unless it's completely forced. Okay. So most people are just suggesting a single move, but see if you can compare a few different moves. Oh, okay, right, yeah. So what have we got? A few people have suggested going c4 immediately here. We've had suggestions, various suggestions of places we could move the knight to. Sometimes because you people just want to immediately attack that d pawn. So a range of possible squares we could move the knight to. And I think somebody suggested, Bodhana, and I think a couple of others suggested they want to play rook e1 to challenge challenge the e file. Okay. Would anyone like to change their mind about what they think is the best move, having seen those range of different options? Okay, so like Sarah says, one of the things you have to be prepared to do is sometimes be a bit patient. We've got a nice position, but you know, we don't have a knockout blow immediately. So rook e1 bringing the rook to the open file, knight c3, after the knight is there, it isn't doing anything. After black defends, what do you do? Okay, c4 cementing the knight, classic. Yep, h3 or h3. It's a sensible idea too. Actually, just giving the king some room. Yeah. All right. Okay. So but if you remember, we said that black's one really active piece is this rook coming down here. So I actually really like the continuation that white played in the game of rook to e1. Okay, yeah, because that kind of cuts out black's counterplay. Oops, there we go. Yeah, so the way that we lose or fail to win good positions is that we underestimate the opponent's counterplay. And great comment, Maria, it develops the one piece that isn't as active. Yeah, so for example, if we go c4 here, then it's a nice idea to cement the knight. But we do have to think about what we're going to do after a move like rook to e2. Yeah, hitting that a2 pawn and getting that rook more active. Yeah, this is the sort of way we can lose control of a good position. I mean, obviously we've got ways of dealing with that, but that's the first thing you need to take into account is you know, how are you going to deal with that counterattack? c4 is not running. Yeah, white's rook. Yeah, no, you certainly don't want to play rook a1 in this position. That's very kind of going in that position. Certainly that's going very backwards. c4 is not going to run away as an option. I don't see that running away. So that's why I really like this rook fe1 move, just challenging black's rook on the e file. And like we said, it's really hard for black to play the sort of moves they'd like to play to solve that problem. So, for example, what's wrong with bishop a5? Which would be a nice move if we could play it. Knight f6 check. Yeah, winning a queen. And what's wrong with trying to connect those the other way by going bishop e7? Knight to f6. No, not knight to f6, because so knight takes e7, winning the d pawn next move. Knight takes e7 is not a bad move, but there's a better one. Who can find a better move?
You see a good move, look for a better move.
Yeah, Adam's found it. Tori's found it and shared it with everyone. Yes, so that f6 square is very sensitive tactically. Rook takes, giving up the exchange, but winning a queen next go. So yeah, so rook fe1 is a nice move tactically as well, because a lot of black's most obvious defenses are just not working. So one of the things I like about this move is it's a great move, even though black can exchange rooks. Okay, and we apparently reduce some of our pressure on the d6. Oh, sorry, I've somehow changed my keyboard to Russian. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Right. Even though we've temporarily reduced our pressure on this pawn, so it's a bit safer, then this still helps us actually, okay, because black is badly connected here along the back rank. So I wouldn't worry too much. That again, that d6 pawn is not going anywhere. We don't have to try and win it immediately. All right, so we'll just look at a few more moves of this game and see how I increase the pressure. So rook to e6. Okay. Yeah, so all these moves, it's better to do this than moving the knight. That knight is occupying a great square on d5, and if we do things like, you know, starting to move it off to f4 or somewhere, then we risk letting black's bishop come out into the game. Yeah, black's position is not going to be so bad if they get the chance to get that one out. Yeah, so you've allowed counterplay. Or knight c3. Well, maybe here black will just go rook e6, and then they're going to get the bishop out. Okay, so rook e1, rook e6, and now knight f4 has more point because it forces now black to exchange rooks, really. I mean, in theory, black could go rook h6 or rook f6, but that really is going to let white just double on the e file, I think. So rook takes, rook takes. Now, can black free their position here by playing d5? We've talked about the problem of that backward pawn. Can black solve that problem by playing d5 here? Exactly. So this one fails tactically as well, and this is the sort of thing you would need to see really before playing rook f to e1 in the first place. So that fails tactically because of the discovered attack on the rook. Okay, so in the game, black went bishop a5. So like I said, trying to get that bishop out over there. And what do you think is a good move here for white? Rook to e6. Rook to e6. Yeah, rook e6. I'm not so. Just have another think, Arditya. People suggesting knight e6 need to have another think. What's the problem with that move? Okay, what was the point of black's last move? Bishop to a5. Attack a rook, right? Some of you are suggesting moves that do nothing to defend this rook. Yeah, these moves don't threaten checkmate, remember, because, well, actually, I suppose, okay, knight there threatens a queen fork, but maybe we go RIP rook, yeah. Maybe we go queen there, okay? Maybe.
Queen d6.
Queen d6.
Rook d8.
Queen d6, rook d8, or even possibly bishop. Oh no, not bishop c7. Rook d8. Knight. Now it looks complicated for white, says Aidan. Yeah, this is a very. I mean, I don't know. Maybe white has got something here, but you've kind of lost control here, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example of losing. I don't see anything. You've lost control of. You wouldn't risk it. Yeah. I think it's just a bad idea. Okay, so right, so and definitely not knight e6, which doesn't actually threatening anything at all, and you'll just hang your rook. So rook e6, I think this is probably not such a good idea. Okay, what would you play here as black? Bishop d2, great move, Gregory. At least I think it's a great move as far as I can see.
Looks good. I mean, I guess we could go knight h5.
We could go knight h5. Yes, I'm just wondering about that. Well, maybe it's not so good.
Queen f7.
Well, queen f7, then we really are hanging d6 again. So,
yeah, true.
But I am just wondering, have we got anything? Can we do anything smart like f4 in this position? No, that's not very smart. Ignore that.
So.
Oh, tricky. No, maybe that is good for white.
Sometimes your opponents have a move that they don't actually realise it works. Knight h5 seems a bit like that.
Yeah, maybe knight h5. Yeah. I thought we were going to be. I thought we were going to be toasted, but maybe.
But the person that suggested rook e6 should have given us the full variation.
Yeah, you would have needed to see this before going rook e6, because I'm. Yeah, that looks okay for white, I think.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why.
You can't. No. Okay. So all right. Maybe bishop d2 is not a great move. So, all right. But let's hang on a minute. Now, how about we just go? Now, why don't we just change rooks instead?
It feels like black's got more active now. The bishop's got out as well.
Now the bishop's got out, and now, I mean, white might still be better, because if white can get into a nice queen against knight versus queen against bishop is usually nice. Usually better to have the queen and the knight, because they complement each other. So they do different jobs, rather than the queen and the bishop, which kind of do some of the same jobs. But black has improved their position with the bishop as well. Yeah, and one of the things here is actually, so white's about to be threatened by back rank mates, and the pawn that white would really like to move on the king's side to defend against those is the G pawn. Okay, so to make the hole on the opposite coloured square to the remaining bishop, but we can't do that. And that means if the king ends up, for example, I don't know, h3 here, that may or may not be the best move, but black's bishop is going to have options to reroute itself, possibly that way, possibly this way, towards that diagonal. So that's a bit uncomfortable for white. I would be much happier here if I could put my king on the G2 square, but I can't, because my stupid queen is blocking it. So That's all just a bit awkward. Yeah, so probably just the simple rook e8. Yeah, so in fact, white can do something much smarter here, which is just to put the knight back on d5. Okay. So what's white threatening now? Knight f6 is the obvious threat. And what else? There is a second threat here as well. Okay, because this is really the key thing, is black has actually got two threats to defend against here. Thank you, Rukai. Yeah, so rook e7 is a mega threat as well. Okay, and it's the combination of those two that really limits black's defenses here. So black in the game put their bishop back to d8 to defend against both those threats. And I think you can immediately see you'll have to give up the queen to stop mate. Yes, if you allow rook e7. Okay, so I think you can immediately see that's much, much better for white. We force that bishop back to the black back rank. Passive bishop, so bad bishop, bad rook again. Okay, so that was an important little tactic. Okay, and now you're bad again, but with, yeah, black is worse again, but with one less rook each. Exactly. And who's controlling the e4, the e file now? We are. Yeah. Okay. So we've exchanged off the only piece that black had active and not let them have any counterplay. So, and now we could go c4. Yeah. So in the game, actually, white went h4, rook b7, c4, but it's the same idea. It's just throwing an h4 first. Like I said, that c4 move is not going anywhere. So and white won in about 10 more moves from this position. I'm not going to show you the rest of the game, okay, because I think classic GM h4. I think we ought to move on, otherwise we won't get to look at a second game. So yeah, so white had a big advantage in that position, but they had to play accurately to hold on to that advantage, okay, and not let black get counterplay. Right. Let me stop that share. I'm going to get another board up, and okay, yeah, let's get this board up. Right, I'm going to share again. Okay, hopefully we can all see this position, yeah?
Yeah.
So a great way to practice, and actually a really fun way as well to practice evaluating positions, is to watch people playing in top level tournaments. So at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time watching the Grand Swiss online, which is taking place in Riga at the moment. There's two sections. There's an open section and a women's section yesterday. And this game is super hot off the press, because this is the game that Jovanka Huska, who's England's top rated woman player, had yesterday in round 3 of the tournament. And Jovanka was black in this position, okay, and it's white to move. So I'd like you to have a think about this position. Who is, let me get my chat window up, who is doing, Rukiah was watching the open. Yeah, that's also yeah, I mean, I was sort of flicking back and forth between both of them. So David Howell is playing.
Yeah, he defended.
Yeah, David Howell drew a 142 move game. I didn't get to the end of that because my evening took over, but yeah, yeah. It's black to play here, is it? No, it's white to play here. I'm sure it's white to play.
I think it is white to play.
It's white to play. Yeah, I'm just realizing, right. Yeah. Okay, so hang on a minute, people. So people are busy suggesting candidate moves. Okay, remember to evaluate the position as well. Okay, though you're quite right, it is actually quite specific. Here, white's got some specific options, and really you need to be evaluating those in advance of putting them on the board. Okay. But one thing that's worth thinking about is who is trying to win this position. Are both sides trying to win? Is the one side who would be happy with a draw or relieved with a draw? Definitely white trying to win this position. Okay. And then you need to think about some candidate moves for white. Black has chances if white messes up. Yeah, that's virtually always true. The question is really how big time of a mess up does it have to be? Okay, so one move that a lot of you have suggested that you need to be evaluating is rook to d8 for white. Okay, what is black's best continuation after that, and how would you evaluate the position? Because that's a critical line in this position. Okay, I'll not try and evaluate it before we put it on the board, because that's what you would need to do if you were playing white in the position. You would need to evaluate that before you put it on the board. Okay, Aditya suggests g4 check. Is that in reply to rook d8? Remember, it's white to move in this position. Okay, and if you don't think rook d8 is good enough, have you got any better moves? Okay, we've had another suggestion from a few people of knight to e7. Okay, so that's two moves to consider. Are there any other moves you should be considering as white? Okay, Ria, you suggesting a few variations. What do you think is the critical variation? What do you think black's best move is against rook to d8? All right. Okay, so this was quite interesting what happened in the game. So she did go rook to d8, and okay, let's just look at the comment on one other option. So a few of you suggested knight to e7, but what's the problem with that? Rook takes pawn, yeah, and then okay, you need to get in your head as far as this position. How are you evaluating that position? Equal, dead draw, equal, yeah, equal is not the same as a dead draw. I'm inclined to go with dead draw here. Yeah. Okay. I don't think either side has got serious chances in that position. So, you know, if we're trying to win as white, we really ought to take that one off the table as an option pretty much straight away. Yeah. Okay, and not waste any more time looking at it. We need to see that far. See, yeah, no, that's just a position in which we can shake hands on the draw. Okay, so rook d8. Rook d8 is a more serious try to win. And what is black's best move here? Yeah, rook takes c7. So you need to all make sure. Some of you got distracted by looking at lines that are clearly winning for white, like, so of which there are two. So those two, okay, so it may seem obvious, but those are two evaluations we should still be going through in our head of those two are clearly winning for white. All right, we don't actually need to do any more analysis about those positions. All right, we should be able to win both of those without too much difficulty. So, yeah, so that means we then need to spend most of our time looking at the Black's serious defensive option. Okay, so Black does also have G4 check, don't they? How does that change things? Let's see. You don't need to be a GM to win those positions. No, exactly. No, I would hope that everybody here would be able to win either of those positions. No problem at all. Right, I'm going to let G4 check. Okay, let's just, what should we do as white? I think we'll move our king. Might as well move it to that square. Okay. Right, so those of you who suggested G4 as an idea, then you need to think what's going on, what's going beyond this. Okay, G4 is not the end of the line because I moved my king out the way, then what's going on? I mean, G4 check, we could also consider taking, I'm not actually sure which of these is better. King, because this allows the king into E4. All right, what's Black going to play here?
Looks a bit scary. Maybe.
For Black?
Well, I just was looking at H3. I don't know if that's what you were thinking at some point.
Well, you've got to make a move immediately and you're about to lose your rook, so.
True, but I was thinking if we don't take it, then we don't have to worry about H3 at any point.
Well, yeah, no, what if we go king E2? That is true. So my point is that this has allowed the white king in. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet whether H takes G4 check is better or it's better just to leave it. And again, it depends how seriously I think I'm trying to play for a win as white. I think you rethink the line and play rook takes c7, knight takes c7, bishop takes c7, and then plays g4, says Gregory. Right. So let's just, out of interest, see what's happening in this position. Rook takes c7. We'll come back to that in the first in a minute. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook c8. Right, where's that bishop going?
G3 maybe?
Back to G3 for the sake of argument. Okay, and now I want to go.
Ooh, you're trying to checkmate me.
Now I want to go king f5. Yeah, this is why I think that going G4 check in response to this has maybe allowed white some extra chances, because white has created a checkmating threat now. Yeah.
Yeah, presumably white's just winning now. Is that right?
Well, again, I don't know if white's just winning. I mean, I guess black has to go king h6.
Yeah.
And then we can take there. But now I would be a lot more optimistic as white, because now I see the chance to get a position where my rook is going to come round and take that one off. And I think that's going to be king and pawn, a king and G pawn against a king in a situation that is winning for us. I think so. Yeah, we sack the rook exactly with a winning. Yeah, with a winning king and pawn end game. Yeah. So that's why I think G4 might be a little bit, well, not just a little bit, actually quite a lot careless. Okay. Black actually wants to, this pawn here is doing quite a good job of keeping white's king out of the position. Okay. I know there's a temptation to get a past H pawn, or to try and hoover all those pawns off on the king side as quickly as possible to force the draw. But I think actually we're going to regret that as black. So in the game, so black's only other move in this position is just to take that one off. Okay, so to give up the exchange for that past C pawn. okay, and have this position. Okay, so how do you so really the question you now need to ask yourselves is, how do you evaluate this position? Does white have any winning chances here? White has some winning chances. How are you going? It looks like you have a fortress just by toggling the bishop. Okay, very small chances if the players are 2800 plus. Well, that's no, you should be able to evaluate the position regardless of how strong the players are. Evaluating the position assumes that, you know, they're going to play the best moves. What is White's game plan? Yeah, they might be in time trouble as well, but actually it doesn't matter so much at this stage because the position's quite simple. It's not that hard to make moves quickly that don't change the position very much. The rook's not active and white has less time. I don't think we know for a fact that white has less time. Or do you mean like white has less kind of chess time? I don't think we know anything about the clock times. Yeah, I think the main thing is that actually white doesn't really have, like one of you said, white doesn't really have a way to make progress here. I need to just go and find how. I've stupidly put the end of the game away. I've hidden it somewhere else. But it was quite interesting watching this.
I've got it. Hang on a sec.
You've got it.
Yeah, just got it here. Because yeah, I watched it as well. So just a minute.
I can't remember where the bishop went.
And just so the bishop went to G3 now.
Where did white's rook go, Sarah?
Sorry, yeah. So we're on this. So rook went to D5, and then
rook went to D,
and then King G6,
and then King G6. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So now black can't play G4 check because of the pin on the side. Okay. So just King G6, and I think, it fairly rapidly became apparent that white doesn't actually have a way to make progress in this position. Yeah, didn't she just lodge her bishop on G3 and then black? Yeah, Jovanka was black, and she did indeed. I don't know what white's next move was. It wasn't terribly important in a way because there's not much either side can do. But essentially, Jovanka lodged her bishop on G3. I mean, white would like to, be able to get their king into the E6 square, but it's a very long journey to be able to do that. And in the interim, if the king starts wandering off on a journey that's kind of, round this way, then in the interim, black will then take the chance to start exchanging off those pawns on the king's side, okay? Bringing it closer to a draw, yeah. And sure enough, about 10 moves later or 20 moves later or something, they did indeed agree a draw. But what is quite interesting, if we go back, let's go back to the starting position. Okay, so if you work all that out as white, then do you actually have any alternative ways to go about trying to win this position? Have you got any other candidate moves? Knight to f6. Okay, doesn't knight f6, king g6, knight e8 work, but it's just drawish again. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, right? Black has here, I guess, is the idea, and then black can just take this, and we're back in exactly the same sort of thing. Yeah. It's very tricky when you have a knight. You're desperate to make it do something. So what about trying to improve the king? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about trying to improve the king? King to e3, yes. So I think this would, or possibly even king to e2, maybe not for any very good reason, just keep it off the dark squares where it's a little bit more prone to checks. All right, what's black going to play here? Maybe g4 here. And I think I would probably leave that one well alone. Yeah. We don't want black having a passed h pawn, so let's just come in here. This looks like a much more serious try for white. So one thing to think about, can black ever defend, can black ever try and take off on h3 and then get their own pawn motoring with f4?
That's black's only plan here, right?
Yeah, but there's a tactical problem with that. Who can spot the tactical problem with that? So if black goes g takes h3, g takes h3, f4 in this position, what's the problem?
It shuts the bishop out.
Yeah, and how can you exploit that as white? Okay.
E7 from rear.
Knight e7, yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking of rook d8. I'd have even forgotten about knight d7. Yeah, so black can't ever play f4 because as soon as they do, we're winning in one of about 3 different ways, aren't we? We're going to win that rook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the fact that rook d8 doesn't get us so far in the first position, it's still always an idea on the board and under the right circumstances. Okay, if black shuts down that bishop, then we're going to be able to do that. And black is really, really struggling for any other way of generating counterplay here, as far as I can see. I think this is probably close to winning for white. Yeah, I think if she'd gone king e2 rather than trying to cash in immediately with rook to d8, I think the white is going to win that game. Okay, but the only way you'll work that out is by by evaluating the position in the main line. Yeah, I think Stockfish did say it was quite a big plus for white at the end of the day. Okay, but the only way you'll find that is by working out that this isn't good enough, that is not going to give you a win. Yeah. Right, let's see. Maybe we'll get one more position very quickly on the board. Let me go and choose my position. Which one shall we have?
What about Harriet Hunt Ketty?
All right. Right. I've put this in the database twice because once is a subsequent position and once is the position we were going there from. Okay, so we'll go this. So this was game again. You can't hear me. Can anyone else hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me, righto. Okay, so this was from the game I had against Ketavan Arakamia Grant in the British Women's Championship 2 weekends ago. Okay, and this was the position we reached. I was white and it is black to move in this position. So how would you evaluate this position as white? White is better, Ruqaiya. Why is white better? Black's got a very weak D pawn, says Aidan. Yep, it's under attack right away, isn't it? So that's the first thing you need to spot, is that it's under attack straight away. Better active pieces. Okay, any other comments? Control of the E file and the A file, yep. White is better because the black queen is tied down to the knight. Great comment, Adi. Yeah, that has indeed been, that was a very important point in this game. Any other factors? What's material like at the moment, by the way? Did you check that out first? Equal. White's better because the D6 pawn is weak. Equal for material, yeah. Do you think it's going to stay equal in material for long? Where are black's weaknesses? B3, yeah. So D6 is weak. Okay, and yeah, E7 is E7 is a knight, so that's kind of a tactical problem. And yeah, but B3, people are now honing in on spotting that one. B3 is incredibly weak, and white should at least gain a pawn. Yes, so the game continued. So black's got to defend her D6 pawn. How are you going to meet it if it goes on to D5? Bishop D6. Okay, if we go bishop D6, I will put my rook over there. C5, yeah, so I might actually just do that. I'm not sure I do want to go bishop D6 first. I'll think about that, but maybe C5 straight away, yeah. And we're fixing this lovely square on D4 for the knight. Okay, maybe I will go bishop D6 first. I haven't decided. But either first or in a minute, then yeah. D5, C5, I'm going to change the pawn structure in this way. So yeah, so in the game then Ketty played bishop to E6, so defending her D6 pawn and counter-attacking my C pawn. And I went, for the sake of time, then I will just give you the next move. So I went queen C1, which I think is a good move because it's a very simple plan. I'm just planning to go queen to C3 and take off this B3 pawn. Okay, that's more important actually than trying to control the A file. And it's quite important to try and cut, or possibly even knight D4, chomp exactly. It's quite important to take that off fairly quickly because, you know, if I do something wrong and mess up, then that pawn could become rather strong there. So I need to round that one up reasonably quickly. The A file wasn't of immediate importance, and it's also quite difficult for black to challenge it because her queen is tied down to the defense of that D pawn. Yeah, it's actually quite tricky for black to solve that, to take over control there. So, you know, for example, she can't play queen to A8 here. And yeah, and then she went, I think she went knight F5 here. Did she go knight F5 here?
Yeah, I think so.
Knight F5 here, and I went queen to C3. There we are. Let's put that as the main line. Yeah, and I went queen to C3. Yeah, and just rounded up that pawn. Okay, one of the problems for black is that actually this knight on F5 is not terribly stable because I've always got the option, if I really want to kick it away with G4. Yeah. Yeah, so I rounded up that pawn, and then I was just a pawn up. But the the key thing about that position that I just showed you was partly working out that, so if we go back to the starting position, then actually white is clearly better here because of that weak b3 pawn, mostly because actually it's almost impossible for black to not lose a pawn within the next few moves. But the real reason I wanted to show you that was because if we go back a few moves earlier, okay, so this is the same game, this is the exact same game a few moves earlier, with white to move here, my move here. And so you can see I've already got my bishop lined up against the d6 pawn, and here I went, this is a fairly forcing line, and one of the things about evaluating is you need to see forcing lines, but then look ahead and be able to evaluate in your head what's going on at the end of the forcing lines. So here I went knight to b3. So exactly, so hitting the bishop, hitting the d pawn, and she went bishop b4, which I'd anticipated. So I moved so hitting the rook, so that's got to move, and it went there. And now what am I threatening as white? I'm threatening the d pawn. Okay, and it's if black defends that by, so black might play bishop e6 or something here. And actually that's not so clear, I don't think. Yes, so I'm also threatening, I've kind of got a dual threat. I've got the immediate threat of bishop takes d6, but there's also this idea of a3 that is going to leave black in serious trouble with that bishop. So she went a4, which is kind of obvious, I think, a3. And then you can see how we're getting to the position I just showed you. A takes b3. This is all a very forcing line. A takes b4, rook takes there, queen takes there. Okay, and we are back in the position that we started with a few minutes ago. So the point that I wanted to make is that I had to decide that I was doing well in this position before I went in for any of that, because it is such a forcing line. Okay, and I was quite happy to go in for that because I was confident that I had a clear advantage that in this position, that it was going to be very hard for black to hang on to her pawns. So it wasn't kind of a surprise to me when I got here at the end of this forcing line, like, oh well, what's going on here? Am I better or am I not? That I judged that in advance before I got there. Right, and we're almost at 3 o'clock, and I think, Sarah, you need to move on swiftly, don't you?
Yeah, so yeah, thanks very much,
sharing there.
That was brilliant. I'll just stop the recording.